Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome again to the Intergalactic Agent. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys a lore video. This is a new segment on my channel, but I'm going to be talking about first class soldiers from Final Fantasy. I really wanted to do a video on this. I didn't see anybody else do it, so I decided to do it myself. Today I'm going to go into the lore of the Final Fantasy soldier, first class specifically, and who's in that group in the first class. Final Fantasy as a game has an enormous lore. There's 1 through 16 coming out, and they're all independent of each other. But within those 16 Final Fantasies, one game in specific stands out, and one world stands out the most. And this is Final Fantasy VII, which is its dystopian, futuristic world with magic and with fantasy all bunched together. Today, the soldiers I'm going to be talking about, and even the idea of Final Soldier First Class, comes from Final Fantasy VII. I'll be going over each soldier as it pertains to their strengths, their powers, a little bit of their importance, and I'm just going to do it from who I feel is like the weakest of the group to the strongest. And I use that word weakest slightly because anybody who's in Soldier First Class and anybody who can rival the power of Soldier First Class is not weak by any stretch of the imagination. It's just going in this tier of really powerful characters. So keep that in mind, and let's get on to the first soldier. First of the Soldier First Class is Weiss.
Strangled and slaughtered. Beaten, stabbed and crushed. Garroted and impaled. Shot and executed.
Weiss is the brother of Nero, and he appears in Dirge of Cerberus. Him and Nero make a cameo appearance in Crisis Core, but you probably can't tell that it's them. Weiss is a soldier from Deep Underground, and he's the leader of Deep Underground, which is a secret kind of society within Shinra. And he and his brother appear after the defeat of Genesis. He's shown in Final Fantasy VII Remake as a secret boss, and he wields 2 sword pistols, which is a smart combination. I'm not sure why people don't use that more often, but you got a sword and a gun, so it kind of circumvents the other's weakness, right? But he's shown it to be very sadistic. He hates humans. Even his first phrase, he comes on and he says what's going to happen to the people who disrespect the planet. We don't know how old Weiss is or how long Weiss and Nero have been around, but if we go back to the Genova project, we can kind of assume how old they are and how long they've been around. Genesis at the end of Dirge of Cerberus comes and even calls him his quote-unquote brother. Genesis could be saying this just because he's also a project of the Genova project. It doesn't necessarily mean Weiss is his actual brother, but Weiss is a product of Hojo's experiments, much like every other first-class soldier on this list. And his abilities, I mean, he has a phase shift ability that allows him to change his weapons, but after that, that's pretty much it. He doesn't have as many abilities as everyone else on the list. He's a really good swordsman, and he looks cool, but outside of that, I don't think that he could truly compete with the other soldiers on the list. And speaking of that, we're going to get into the next soldier. Secondly is Nero the Sable.
Let the games begin.
Nero is the antagonist of Dirge of Cerberus, and he's Yuffie's antagonist in Intergrade. He's shown as one of the most sadistic, members of Soldier First Class. He even begs for the pleasure of death as you defeat him in Yuffie's story. He has wings and he can fly much like the other members of Soldier, although slower than the big 3, that are going to be coming up later on the list. He can clone things and use the power of chaos and darkness. Like his brother Weiss, he uses chaos, but unlike Weiss, he uses darkness. He can use darkness to manipulate things. He can suck people into darkness, and it implies he kills them when he does this. He even has his own gun, which he clones using his own power of darkness. So his ability is really focused around darkness, and Weiss's ability is kind of focused around light. That's why Nero's name is Nero, Italian for darkness, and Vice is German for light as well. But he is a member of First Class, and he is a member of the underground as well, the deep underground. Him and his brother are not as powerful as some of the other members of First Class Soldier, but they are extremely dangerous. And Nero in particular is so dangerous, he's always seen wearing a straitjacket or a coat, kind of to limit his energy and to limit the Mako intake, because Shinra fears if he were to ingest too much Mako, he'd become too powerful. So that alongside his unpredictable personality would make Nero a very, very fearsome foe. Now we get into some of the most notable members, starting with Angel Hewley.
Use brings about wear, tear, and rust.
Angel is the original owner of the Buster Sword, which is wielded later on by Zack and then even later by Cloud. And in my opinion, he's a First Class Soldier who stands out the least, even amongst like Nero and Vice. Angel doesn't wear any unique outfits. He doesn't particularly have some unique hair or really unique abilities even. He's kind of like your everyday, ordinary soldier, but with superpowers, because he's a project of Project G. Him, Genesis, are both projects of Project G and a few others, except in some ways he's superior to Genesis in that he can give his ability like Genesis, but he can also absorb the ability of those he gives it to. He isn't shown being particularly bad, and out of all of the First Class Soldiers, it could be said he's one of the few good guys amongst this list. You know, he can clone himself. He's not really much of a magic user. In Crisis Core, we see him operate with his fists a lot and do hand-to-hand combat. We hardly even see him wield the Buster Sword. I mean, it may originally be his sword and a fairly family heirloom for him, but this sword is way more synonymous with Zack and Cloud than it ever was with Angel. He has the ability, even when we fight him, we don't get to fight him in human form. We actually fight a clone of him fused in with other clones of him, wielding a trident. You know, interestingly enough, and also interestingly enough, of all the soldiers who can fly, they're all depicted with black wings. Angel is the only one depicted with a white wing. I guess kind of showing that he is a good guy and he isn't necessarily evil like Sephiroth or Genesis can be depicted as. He speaks of honor and he has kind of a noble characteristic about himself. But coming in at number 4 is Angel, Soldier First Class. Coming in at number 3, the primary antagonist of Crisis Core and arguably the primary antagonist in Final Fantasy VII is Genesis.
We are monsters. We have neither dreams nor honor.
Genesis is among the most powerful members of Soldier. Him, Sephiroth, and Angel. He was based off of a Japanese musician named Gact, who probably put us all on to J-Rock and J-Pop at the time, with tunes like Redemption from Dirge of Cerberus, of which, speaking of Dirge of Cerberus, Genesis has made 2 appearances so far, Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus, and he's also made an appearance, or he will be making an appearance, in the re-release of Crisis Core. We see him call Vice brothers, so he is aware of Vice and Nero, and he's also aware of Angel and Sephiroth. Sephiroth, whom he shows a great deal of envy for, wanting to kind of replace him in his ideals of being a hero and what Sephiroth is seen as. Genesis can clone himself. He's a project of Project G. He also has abilities where he can create supernova-like attacks. Unlike a Buster Sword or a long katana, he wields a large rapier. You know, he can drain the life of his foes. He can even use the life stream as his own weapon, using the life stream to create summons You know, his major weakness is his degradation, which is brought on because he is a project of Project G, and unlike another member we'll be mentioning on this list, he isn't a perfect product of that project. Therefore, he's constantly looking for the cure for his degradation, and if he did get the cure, he'd be a lot more powerful, and potentially he'd be a lot larger of a threat to the Final Fantasy universe, the Final Fantasy VII universe, than even Sephiroth would be. But I think due to his lack of appearance, due to the fact that he wasn't in Final Fantasy VII originally, and due to just him being kind of like a very sparse presence with nothing that has stood out about him or been promoted about him, it hasn't left him as memorable to a lot of fans. But we do know he's a big fan of Loveless. If Angel was the noble, this guy's the romantic of the three. And we also know he's appeared in Dirge of Cerberus, and we know, much like Sephiroth, he is coming back eventually, because a lot like Sephiroth, he hasn't truly died yet. So regardless of his power in relation to Angel, Sephiroth, or any other person on this list, we know that Genesis is definitely not only arguably the antagonist of the show, but he's a very cunning villain, because despite his power in relation, he's come back time after time and has shown that he isn't truly dead. Now we get into number 2 on the list. Coming up at number 2 is Zack Fair.
Hello to you too. Come and get it.
Zack Fair is the definition of hard work pays off. He doesn't have any shadow powers, any light powers. He doesn't create supernovas. He isn't Angel and able to copy himself. Zack earned his way to Soldier First Class by fighting his way to the top. Any attack he saw anybody do, he was able to learn. He was even able to learn Sephiroth's Octaslash. He was able to learn some of Genesis' attacks, some of Angel's attacks. He was trained by Angel in the art of combat. So he's an expert of hand-to-hand as well as sword combat. Zack Fair, he's a regular guy. And that's what he is in this list, and that's what makes him special and what makes him number 2, because he isn't some mythical being. He isn't some eternal life force that wanders around in a live stream. He doesn't have some special mystical powers. I mean, he learns and copies from everybody else. He's just an average everyday guy. I mean, heck, he's kind of more ordinary than Cloud, really, when it comes down to it. And the amazing part about Zack is that outside of Sephiroth, he actually ends up being the only first-class soldier who's talked about in such a high regard like Sephiroth, making it to a place that Genesis and Angel, who have way more abilities and are probably way more powerful than him, tat for tat, can even got, you know. And he went toe-to-toe with Angel and Genesis, and he beat both of them in the fight against them, you know. So Zack, within his own right, is definitely deserving of this list, and is definitely the number 2 spot on this list of Soldier. Before I get into the number 1 pick, I want to go with some honorable mentions. Let's go with Rouge. Rouge is a new character, and he's only a 3rd class soldier, and he's just introduced in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, but he shows a lot of potential. He does insane tricks on a motorbike and shows some affinity to lightning, which probably means he could be a Soldier First Class candidate if he continues his time with Shinra. He's very powerful, he loves battle, and he's all around a fun boss fight to fight, you know, all around. Another honorable mention is Rufus Shinra. Rufus Shinra is the owner of the company after his father is killed by Sephiroth. But Rufus Shinra is able to keep up with Cloud, who, spoiler alert, is not a soldier and never was a soldier, but has the memory and the combat capabilities of a first-class soldier, showing that even if Rufus Shinra is not as powerful as the big three, or as powerful as Zack, or as powerful as Cloud, even, he's enough, or he's on par with people who are in soldier first class, where he can battle them and he can keep up with them, making him an honorable mention on the list. Last but not least, the honorable mention you guys knew was coming, as I just mentioned, Cloud Strife. Cloud Strife is not a soldier. Spoiler alert, as I've said before, he was just, his memories were implanted from Zack. So all of the memories Cloud had as a soldier were really Zack's memories. And this is why he thought he was soldier first class. But in thinking this way and in living his life this way and kind of embracing a fearlessness, he gains the powers to rival a soldier first class. And he gains the powers to even battle with Sephiroth. So although Zack is not soldier first class and he's never been soldier first class, it's very debatable and arguable that by now he has the power of a first class soldier. Coming off at number 1 is soldier first class Sephiroth.
Oh, you need not remind me. It was the crowning moment of our time together. But that was then, and this is now. I have a favor to ask. Our beloved planet is dying. Slowly, silently, painfully. Can you bear to see the planet suffer? Cloud.
I think everybody knew that this was coming. Sephiroth literally has the power of a god. He can summon meteors, he has Masamune, he flies, he can't die, he's a master of all materia. He barely appears within Final Fantasy VII. If you play the original, he hardly appears. And if you play the remake, he hardly appears. He appears more in Crisis Core than he does in Final Fantasy VII and the remake. You know, and then there's the movie Advent Children, but Sephiroth's appearance is so dynamic. He stands out so much. He does so much with what little is given to him. It's very clear he is the most powerful first-class soldier. No other soldier has done what he's done. No other soldier has been reborn as many times as he has been reborn. He was even told by Hojo, who did the experiments on Genesis and Angel and him, that he was the perfected result of that project. Sephiroth, even though Zack was able to go toe-to-toe with the big two, even if they were weakened, he couldn't do anything against Sephiroth. Zack lost to Sephiroth. Sephiroth is the embodiment to most people what the first class soldier is. He's an embodiment to a lot of people of what a hero is. And he's the embodiment to what the perfect product of alien madness and a mad scientist can come out to do, which is seen when he loses his mind, but was recently an orderly character, you know, and a composed character up until that point of which he found out what he was and why he was so powerful. From the long silver hair, to the blade, to the black trench coat, and to the meteorites that he pulls from the sky. This guy is not only seen as an iconic Final Fantasy of all the series villains, but he's seen as an iconic enemy of RPGs in general, and of JRPGs in general. He's one of the most iconic villains to ever be created, you know. So there's not, he also has black materia that he can master, you know, and it's Genesis believes Sephiroth can cure the degrading process if he wanted to, in Angel and in Genesis as well. So this guy, there's not much that needs to be said or much more that needs to be said about him. He is truly powerful, and he is truly the most powerful soldier first class. Hey, if you guys want anything in depth about these characters, anybody on the list, leave me a comment, like, and subscribe, and hit the bell, turn those notifications on. But if you want somebody more in-depth background story, anything like that, leave a comment. And I'll be doing videos on other Final Fantasy games, other Final Fantasy characters. Maybe I'll even do one on Leon from Final Fantasy VIII or Jecht from Final Fantasy X if you guys want to see that. But make sure to leave a comment about that and like and subscribe. And that's it for me, guys. Peace.